brands have to be very careful about the type of content they put out there. And like I said, the data today exists both implicit and explicit to take action and provide different types of offer, provide different types of content curation experiences. But most importantly, like I also was imagining earlier, is that don't make me click beyond the context of that thing which I've been given, right? So all the consideration that I want to do should happen in channel. If I'm on the website, give me a great search. Great search gets me the best results. If I see the results, I know which category I'm looking for. If I get the category I'm looking for, give me maybe some descriptive social proofing, right? So at least I know. And this is the journey I have on the website, probably the same on the app. Give me the same journey on email. Give me the same journey on WhatsApp, right? These are conversational medias that have actually enabled a lot more uh, abilities today to transact in channel than you had before. And I think that's the level of gratification the shopper also wants. They're giving you 5 seconds. In 5 seconds, either I'm making a decision very quickly, looking at what I see visually. Am I taking an action? Yes or no, right? And if it's not compelling enough, it's not above the fold enough, it's going to be deleted.
You are listening to Power Marketing with Kevin Lee. Kevin and his agency Did It have helped thousands of businesses win through superior marketing, as have his books, articles, speaking engagements, and the E-Marketing Association Power Marketing podcasts. Here's Kevin.
I'm Kevin Lee with the E-Marketing Association. I also run an agency. It's got about 50 people that does traditional and digital marketing, mostly digital actually, but we made a few acquisitions. Also have a brand called Truth Nutrition, and I run a nonprofit giving forward in the cause marketing space. Uh, Super excited to be chatting with Pratik Bhadra about two different companies that he's got. One is more sort of in the email business, and the other one's sort of called Netcore Unboxed. So, what are the two elevator pitches, just so people can frame our conversation between Netcore and Netcore Unboxed?
Sure thing. So again, thank you for having me on this podcast as well. So two things that we do really, really well. I think on these Netcore Unbox side, think of us as the one that powers the site search browsing experience. So if, when shoppers go out there to a retailer, they search as they think. And when they type that in the search bar, that doesn't necessarily translate to the product the brand's trying to sell. So we make it really, really easy for the brand to provide that search capability to actually find the products that the shoppers are looking for. So that's one piece that we do really well. And we do that really well because we have a strong data foundation. So we go shopper behavior with the product catalog, and we actually even enrich the catalog a little bit better to understand what people are looking for. In addition to that, we also look at the marketing side. So great, you finished the web experience from the search, discovery to conversion, but there's also this whole foundational playback on what do I market to people? And when I'm marketing to people, we are marketing to them on email, on SMS, and all these traditional channels, which we feel will drive more site traffic or app traffic. But what we do differently in that, right now, we do the same things like most other players in that space. And we are probably even like top 3, top 5 by volume there. But what's interesting about us is we go and try and say, if I got you an email, can I convert you an email? If I got you an SMS, can I convert you within that channel? So never try to leave the context of the channel. Can I treat it as a microsite and actually make it a conversion channel, similar to what people have thought about as Insta shops and so on. And that's what we are uniquely bringing to the table. And both Forrester and Gartner have recognized us in leadership positions because of that.
Great. Well, I'm a huge fan of within e-commerce, any techniques, tactics, or strategies that will increase LTV or increase AOV, which of course has an indirect impact on LTV. And so, it provides leverage because obviously, if you get higher LTV and higher AOV, if you're using a ROAS or some other KPI that is based on how much you earn in profit from a customer, it allows you to afford more media, right? So that becomes an engine that drives your entire business forward. So, where does technology fit as a tool to sort of increase the leverage at each touch point, right? Because each touch point can add more leverage. It's a compounding effect, actually.
Yeah, and I think the what's interesting with that thesis, like you said, there's obviously paid media that traditionally people go and spend a lot of money on to try and get people back on the website. But that's typically skewed towards that first acquisition play, right? Like my first purchase versus the repeat purchase, right? So in your vein as well, like today, at least in today's world where CAC is only increasing, everyone's trying to figure, okay, my CAC has to be higher than so lower than LTV. So how do I actually keep increasing the LTV? And natural inclination is going and looking at your CRM segments and say, who are my repeat buyers? Can I get them to buy one more time, two more times, and so on? And what I'm seeing as a leverage playback is even your VIPs are in an attention recession of sorts, where every brand out there is trying to bombard them with the same type of content. So you as a brand have to decide what can I do uniquely different for them to come back and remain the loyalist that they are. And the loyalist in them is still giving you maybe 5 seconds of attention. So as a brand, you're thinking, okay, now I have 5 seconds to make an immediate impact on how am I going to get that shopper who knows me through a loyal engagement pattern to keep knowing me, keep considering me as the choice of the brand when it comes to buying something. So that those 5 seconds matter. So our play is if you are on that channel, are there tactical things that you can do differently to change the customer experience of sorts to enable them in a frictionless environment to convert in channel? And that's where we have started to see a lot more success with driving more LTV because in a way, because you're within that context of that channel and you're not distracted, right? If you're given 5 seconds, you see something compelling, could be an offer, could be the right product, could be the right predicted category of things that you want to buy. The brands kind of got you hooked. And when you are in that consideration moment, you're not leaving. And you're giving every tools that are available in your kitty as a brand to actually make that next step of conversion happen.
Right, right. Well, what is the proper level of sort of hyper personalization? Obviously, the more you know about your individual shoppers, the more personalized you can make things, but you reach a point of diminishing returns because you can have segments that are all very similar to each other and may respond to
Yep.
very similar messaging. And then you've got sort of the individual who may differ from their segment a little bit. So, how does one use technology and data to find that right level of personalization, preferably on an automated basis, so that you don't have to have humans intervening?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, we can all agree that, no segmentation or no personalization is obviously not a way to kind of do this. So there's a debate ongoing, right? Which is like, is it a segment of one or is it a segment of many? And what's the right balance there? I think that's where like the question kind of you ask kind of comes in, which is like, is too much hyper personalization worth it? Or is it actually enough hyper personalization that will actually get you to the point of
Yeah.
getting your shopper to do something with you? I think the first part is, I mean, just very foundational. I think you need the data to begin with to even ask these questions. What I've seen, unfortunately, is a lot of brands don't even have this level of data. What I mean by that is, what is my shopper doing with my product that I'm trying to sell? And I'm not talking about purchases. That's a given. Like I bought X. But what about views? I viewed something. I searched for something. I added to cart but did not buy. I looked at a category of that thing. These are all signals. Now, a question can be asked, okay, what do I do with these signals? I know people who bought or did not buy, and I want to get those people who bought to buy more. But what the data is actually telling you with all these additional signals earlier in the funnel is telling you what you can cross-sell them on. And in a way, the shopper is giving you these hints. And today's world, especially if you look at the social side of things, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram, all the meta kind of or influence playbacks, and also Google, they've also educated the shopper a little bit on saying, hey, we are listening to you and we're going to give you stuff that is relevant to you, right? So when a brand does not do that, it's pretty obvious. So it's almost expected at this point where there's a level of personalization the brand is doing, even based on previous shopping behaviors at a minimum, to also some additional listening behaviors on the funnel to give you some level of context on the next best category of purchase or the next maybe complete the look style thing if it was an apparel kind of playback on things. That's the what I would say is the new baseline minimum. Now you could argue to also what you were asking that can this all be automated to the point of like I'm giving all these signals as a shopper all the time. Brand automatically listen to everything that I'm saying and then react very maybe real time to every signal that I'm giving. We haven't seen enough data today to prove that that leads to more lifetime value or more purchases or lifetime value. We have definitely seen, even if you do the basics of get me enough signal to give you the next category of purchase, is driving more AOV and driving more repeats, which then obviously drives LTV.
Right, right. That looks like it's a work in progress, but at least some level of segmentation drives an increase in your KPIs. So, obviously, the saying is fish where the fish are, right? And so wherever the consumer is, you should try to be. When you're using email and SMS and other forms of straight push notifications, right? The point you were making earlier is that let's try to keep that transaction within or as close to within that form of push notification as possible. But then you've got, platforms, Amazon FBA and other marketplaces like Walmart where and then obviously the social media platforms have started to add shopping, like TikTok shops and things like that. So, do you have any good examples of where a brand has been able to really maximize their, removing friction at each one of these stages, where they've done it within their own owned and operated push, which would
Yeah.
include email, SMS, maybe browser-based push as well, maybe app-based push, and then they've got obviously the marketplaces and the social media ecosystem as well.
Yeah, I think I just the premise of it all is, as a brand, especially in a world where you have the likes of Temu and Shein spending $3 billion in just paid spend, right? You can't compete with the likes of that, right? So I think the what's interesting what's happening on the brand side is what I'm seeing even more so now, where brands which were traditionally retail or D2C or even D2C by themselves are opening up distribution channels through traditional warehouses or even Amazon and so on, where they know that they will not get the data on the shoppers, where they'll just get revenue top line and some level of margin benefit because the assumption is that, hey, my shopper's there. They are discovering to begin with that it's not just a traditional Google search. So I need to have some product there because I need to get that revenue mix in a way that actually enables me to scale up. Now, the problem statement there also is that, okay, how do you actually scale up to that level? Because you don't know what segments will perform better in those channels versus your traditional channels. Because at the end of the day, if you want a better profitable business, you still want them to come back to your owned channels, right? Because that's where you have the highest margins, you have the most control, and you have more data about the customer. So what I've seen a lot more, while I think I'm seeing a lot more brands kind of moving down the lines of saying, let's create a wider distribution strategy. But the core focus still from the margin side is on the own channels. Like saying, okay, while I might have a limited product mix that is kind of going out there, maybe my best sellers and things that I know I'm okay also taking a hit on margin because they were high margin products to begin with. But at least for the rest of my catalog, somehow driving them back for product discovery, back to the website or maybe even a store if that's the strategy to get a lot more traction going. And this is again coming back to the pretext on, do I have enough data to even qualify better and maybe use that data in paid channels better, right? So whether it's remarketing, maybe I'm using the data of my best customers to find lookalikes of those best customers versus just kind of going out there and hoping that I can compete on bidding and then eventually with a higher CAC, get people to buy. In fact, in some cases, maybe I acquire the same customer, which is even real in today's world.
Right, right. Obviously, the best case scenario for a DTC marketer or even a channel-based marketer who's somewhat indifferent between which channel their customer prefers, the customer may prefer Amazon FBA, even if the DTC marketer has their PII. But in those cases where they have more than one permission push relationship, are there best practices in that choreography, right? So if I have your SMS permission and you're welcoming text from me and I have your email address, maybe browser push is enabled, maybe there's an app installed, and all these are sort of push formats. But you probably shouldn't, I'm imagining, just take the same exact offer in for those few customers that you have all of these permissions and set and push them all the same message, right? So the people's level of comfort with permission with volumes of things is probably different by channel, and maybe the messaging has to be different as well.
Yeah, 100%, right? Because I mean, your behavior patterns with how you engage on each channel will be different from mine, right? So even what we were talking earlier about personalization, there's at least at a minimum personalization on the own channels on what's my preferred channel versus not, right? There's enough data that you can do, especially now and how quicker some models can react, and you can get data on a channel affinity faster. But even beyond that, it actually depends on the type of messaging you want to see. Let's say if I'm on a phone, and if I am on let's say the next version of SMS, right, with RCS now being more predominant with the Apple update, where my guess is RCS replaces SMS in the next couple of years. Now you're starting to see richer media conversations, brand and shopper. So at that point of time, if I'm more comfortable being that personal with the brand as a shopper on my phone texting, and if the shopper is giving me, so the brand's giving me more direct insights, including product discovery, more rich media, then I'm intrigued, right? I'm giving almost like that small form factor, limited space interaction area, and I'm getting exactly what I need, right? Because that's what, if you think psychologically, we've all kind of been groomed into now, short form content, just above the fold kind of stuff, which was sure ready, true in older ad media stuff as well, but that's becoming even more prevalent now. So my belief is that every channel, including email, SMS, RCS, WhatsApp, any of these newer media channels that are also coming out, are all kind of going into this short form mode modularity of sorts, where all you see is what you see in the context of your mobile devices. And in that context, you are making an action that gives you the immediate gratification feedback back from the brand. And the brands have to change their methodology of not thinking about, hey, maybe first, of course, a big no to everyone gets the same message. Then it's like, okay, maybe everyone in a channel gets the same message, also big no. Then maybe everyone in a segment gets the same message, also no, right? So can we now hyper personalize to that individual segment, but to the product mix that they should see? And when they see that, don't give me like a essay to read, just give me enough that catches my attention and I can click through and ideally finish a transaction faster than I could have otherwise. Like the app experience, the web experience, everyone wants that instant shopping experience, which is true today in most interactive channels. I don't think this will happen in SMS. I think SMS has kind of lived its course to an extent. I think this is what's going to start happening on every other own channel that brands can then push their messaging on in a much more unique way than they were before.
Right, right. Well, certainly, one of the things that improves consumer, action is emotion, right? So there's an emotional gratification that is sort of required, for the consumer to take their action. They're deciding to interact with the retail brand. They're deciding to interact with the creative. And given that form factor that you just described, I would imagine it can be challenging to try to figure out how to push the proper emotional buttons and deliver the emotional gratification within that window. So, how should marketers think about, does the gratification have to happen immediately in that initial splash screen, or is that a hook or a teaser that just brings the person in and they get sort of emotionally gratified in the next segment of the interaction?
Yeah, and I think it's some of it is also again like sometimes it's just the offer, right? But there might be brands who don't discount at all. There's no offer
Right.
discounting playtime. Just more, hey, I'll give you more points, right? You're seeing a lot more brands going and building out loyalty programs today,
Mhm.
mainly as a way of saying, let me gratify you with engagement. And if you do engagement, I'll give you more points. More points translates to money. More money in your mind says, oh, I can buy something, right? So the choice maybe is a little easier, but at the same time, am I actually giving you that which is more compelling for you to take action on? If I am a not discount shopper, then why are you giving me a discount offer? Get the biggest margin away from me as a shopper. But the data tells you, right? I'm buying at full price almost every single time. So then the brand should be able to have access to this level of data to also engage differently. Because sometimes, even psychologically, as a full price buyer, if I see a brand starting to discount a lot more, I might feel like, oh, maybe their brand identity is kind of diminishing to a different customer segment. So brands have to be very careful about the type of content they put out there. And like I said, the data today exists both implicit and explicit to take action and provide different types of offer, different types of content curation experiences. But most importantly, like I also was imagining earlier, is that don't make me click beyond the context of that thing which I've been given, right? So all the consideration that I want to do should happen in channel. If I'm on the website, give me a great search. Great search gets me the best results. If I see the results, I know which category I'm looking for. If I get the category I'm looking for, give me maybe some descriptive social proofing, right? So at least I know. And this is the journey I have on the website, probably the same on the app. Give me the same journey on email. Give me the same journey on WhatsApp, right? These are conversational medias that have actually enabled a lot more uh, abilities today to transact in channel than you had before. And I think that's the level of gratification the shopper also wants. They're giving you 5 seconds. In 5 seconds, either I'm making a decision very quickly, looking at what I see visually. Am I taking an action? Yes or no, right? And if it's not compelling enough, it's not above the fold enough, it's going to be deleted, right? So I think that's where we have to be, both as brands and also vendors supporting brands, be very diligent about using their data to provide a lot more actionability than brands provide today.
Well, I would imagine that you and your teams are talking with e-commerce players primarily, perhaps other businesses as well, that are all different stages of their own sort of digital transformation. And we've gotten through many iterations of sort of e-commerce over the years since the early days. So, given that, have you noticed that there's some common themes of or low-hanging fruit mistakes that are being made commonly across the folks that you're talking to, where they could use technology to pretty quickly increase AOV, basket diversity, LTV, and immediately see a lift in the profitability of their business?
Yeah, I think one thing which I do see, especially with traditional omni retailers, I would say omni as like retail and online kind of presence, maybe traditionally more retail than online, is they've kind of brought together their stack of different moving parts. There's a purchase system, there's a ERP system, there's a inventory management system, there's all these MarTech systems on top. They are very disconnected and siloed, right? And this also, which is kind of crazy if you think about 10 years ago, everyone was talking about digital transformation to make everything unified and then kind of do something fun with it. That's been like the bare bonesy biggest, I think, issue with someone trying to go from traditional to maybe something which is more modern commerce, if there was a way of kind of phrasing that. And what's happened with the traditional is that you kind of assumed the tech stack was what it was, and you build this whole services or supporting layer on top of it. Now, to unravel that whole equation takes a lot of change management, a lot of dollars, a lot of planning while you're already struggling with the business. Now, the problem statement, though, is that if you realize what was technology 10 years ago to what was technology even now, a lot of these predicted next actions, whether it's figuring out what shopper segmentation needs to be, what even personalization of recommendations needs to be for the next best product, that used to take maybe months to figure it out. Now it takes minutes to figure it out, right? That's how fast we've kind of come. But some of these traditional players struggle because for them, changing to this modern stack is a massive effort. But the only problem is that if they don't, they're going to either get stuck or they probably die as a company, right? Because I think where we are starting to see a lot more traction where people had inhibitions, where, hey, I think that works, but we are not ready yet. Oh, I think it works, that data needs to come together. All those I have these problem conversations have actually gone away by technology, not even people, right? Getting data in one place gotten easier. Data aggregation become easier. Identity realization become easier. Getting models to run on top of that to predict better segmentation, better content have gotten significantly easier in the last year, even more so. So when you have all of that, so all those excuses of sorts no longer exist. So it's almost like, okay, now what's the right prio? Do I survive as a business because my CAC is increasing, but I have to survive with what I have, or do I take that big rip the bandit off motion now? Can I do that? And I'm kind of focusing on the traditional because my worry today is that you think 10 years of digital transformation as a lingo, you'd have assumed maybe a good shift had already happened, but it hasn't, because the data shows that even going into 2030, especially in commerce, there's going to be a lot of brands still going from very old, like 2000s, like old rack and stack systems to even modernized stacks. And I think that's where a lot of that evolution needs to happen. Because if it doesn't, I think it's going to be a big, big problem for them. But on the flip side, folks who made that call early or even now are starting to see the value of the data, right? Because they are realizing that, oh, wow, I had more data than I thought I had. I don't know how to make sense of it. Then you either get a vendor or you get your own R&D teams to kind of make sense of it. then you realize like, oh wow, so the what I was kind of getting a lot of marketers or data scientists to do for me, or even consulting houses to do for me, that's actually coming out of the box now, right? Okay, that's one more efficiency measure on top. Then I'm paying agencies to create segmentation strategies, content strategies. Wait a minute, now some version of AI is driving and giving me that to begin with. So I'm actually getting more scenario plans than before. So suddenly there's this whole aha light bulb moment of saying, oh crap, I actually had more than I thought I had. And now I'm at the other problem, like what do I prioritize? Because I have too much now, right? Which I don't know how to start with, which is a good problem to have still versus, hey, I'm stuck and I can't do much with what I already have.
Right, right. Well, certainly we've all seen during pitches and in helping out new clients that they sometimes don't even have the back end business intelligence to answer some of the rudimentary questions around LTV or LTV by segment, or some of the clusters of segments that behave differently from the average, and they're still working off of averages, right? and,
Yeah.
and not really teasing out the
Spreadsheets.
fact. Yeah, exactly. And the reality is, of course, there is no average customer, right? There's customers on both sides of that curve, and more importantly, there's potentially some power customers that disproportionately represent profitability, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
knowing
Probably
who they are.
the 20% is probably driving 80% of the revenue and the profits anyway, right? So I think, even in that way, and if you think about like traditional retail is, I've always been like told this concept and I've lived it to an extent as well when I've gone and seen some retailers in action. The concept of the Monday morning business meeting, right? Where you have the marketer, the merchandiser, the data person, maybe the CMO, the merchant, all of these people trying to figure out, hey, we have a quarterly goal of revenue and margin. And on a weekly basis, we're going to do a comparable of what the revenue is today versus what it was exactly the same day last year. And we have a plan because we are trying to follow similar patterns. And if we deviate from the plan, then we have to make immediate changes. Like, oh, here's sell through this product to get more revenue. Oh shit, margin got hit. Okay, sell high margin products so I can get the margin back up. And you're constantly playing this almost daily grind battle to get the levers back in motion to get through the week. And then you start over on Monday again, right? Just to kind of keep up with the numbers. And what do you think about, that whole grind? What's kind of happening in that meeting, right? To your point, hey, what was a comp today versus last year? What product sold? And somebody either is on a BI tool kind of figuring that out, or somebody in a spreadsheet finding some pivot tables and some filters and giving that data. Just imagine like even today that happens, right? Why? You don't need that level of like old kind of antiquated kind of stuff because the life has gotten easier. Even like a basic chat GPT LLM on top will give you the data faster, right? So what's crazy about that for me is that we are still in this efficiency game of trying to learn from the past and can kind of use that plus a little bit more, but those are incremental a little bit more. My philosophy is the data is there already. You are asking the same questions. The questions people are asking on how do I get more revenue, sell through, what type of product should be going through are not different. There's experience in the room. So you can probably use experience to say, hey, let's try these five things, because those things have worked for us in the last few years. But as COVID has also taught us, buying patterns have changed, right? So what you may have done before, even in the post-COVID era, may not work. So in fact, in some cases, you're back in 2019 right now as a comparable to what the world is today. So my question almost kind of becomes like, okay, why not use the data patterns, actually leverage AI for what it is going to be more useful for? Yes, there's efficiency stuff on creating segments, creating content, but let's ask the more fun questions. Okay, how did I do last year? What product mix actually got me to that level of insight, like how you were talking about LTV and averages? What customer segments are actually working? And if I had to now push our product to these customer segments, what are likely products they'll buy? Why not actually create a AI twin of sorts and ask those questions? And I'm not saying try and completely rely on the AI, but use that as additional scenario planning. Because otherwise, you're just using your traditional mindset and also your traditional set of examples that you're using. But maybe let AI give you some more examples and say, hey, try these four things, and it'll scenario plan to probably more information than you could come up with in, maybe you could come up with in months. It's giving you in minutes. It may be wrong, which is okay. It's still more experiments, right? You can A, B, C, T test through it. And I think that's the value add that we are significantly missing today, or at least I think there's a maybe less of a realization that you can actually do a lot more with it versus trying to be stuck a little bit on the older patterns.
Sure. Well, yeah, clearly you're pointing out the empowerment of AI potentially helping in reporting and analysis of these data sets that are being accumulated, sometimes in different databases potentially. But another area that's sort of hot within the AI community is vector databases and how they are improving making product recommendations, right? Because a well-programmed vector database knows what is the next best product when something is out of stock, or what the next best add-on product is when you've added something to your shopping cart. Probably better than a human would in many cases. They're not perfect, but I'd love to hear, how that's making a difference in, you know, improving AOV, for example, or cross sell from a an out of stock product into one that is in stock that's a viable substitute.
Yeah, and before we kind of go deeper into that, I think one foundational thing to enable that better is better product data. I think
Mm,
what most of us don't realize is that, look, we can have much more modern AI kind of stacks, better LLMs kind of playing out with structured and unstructured information. But if the data powering it is garbage, your output will also be garbage. So
yeah.
one big key learning that we had, and especially when powering search, right? Because search is, you're writing natural language, you're hoping it translates to something in the catalog. What you realize is the catalog is written by merchandisers. And what merchandisers are being told is, right, add these keywords in there so we can optimize for SEO. So Google Shopping can pick it up better and drive traffic to the website. But let's be honest, that's not how people who are on your website are searching, right? So if I'm looking for, hey, what's that L-shaped couch thingy where I can put my foot on, which may be called a chaise, right? Nobody's looking for a chaise. People are looking for the thing they can put their foot on, right? So how does that translate from natural language to keywords to actually things in your product catalog? So our thesis became look at the product catalog and first determine what the brand's giving you. Brand's probably giving you 5, maybe 10 attributes to describe the product. That's not enough. You need to go down to the depth of 50, right? And that's not people manually doing it. You can even use AI. There's enough image AI solutions out there to get you enough data on enriching that data further. That's step one. Once you have that, and then to your point, adding a level of vectorization actually enables you to actually figure out what is that next best thing people are actually looking for by understanding what the request was to begin with. If I use search again as an example, typically, it's 2 keyword searches, 3 keyword searches. You kind of know what you're looking for at that point of time. But once you're kind of beyond that, it's like this fuzzy math, right? You're trying to figure out, okay, what exactly was this? Is it within a dimension? Is it a price sensitive shopper? There's so many of these variables that come in, right, to drive you to the next product, including the recommendation example you gave, like, hey, okay, I bought this. Does that mean I'm price sensitive? Am I looking for lower revenue products, price products to then drive AOV? What should I give this individual? But there are enough patterns, even in session, to give you ideas of what that person is looking for. And what I like about the vectorization ideas, I think it's kind of helped bridge the gap between structured data and unstructured data much faster than we could in the past. And in that, you can now create a better contextual playback on, okay, what is the individual actually looking for, including things like, on what dimension are they looking for? Meaning, like, is it a size thing? Is it a price thing? Is it a measurement thing? Is it a theme? Is it like a flavor, a color, like, crimson versus velvet? Like, they're all reds, but you may not even have that in the catalog, right? So how are you trying to translate these things? That accumulation of information has gotten, computing that output has gotten much, much better. And I think when I see the outcomes, whether it's on search to drive better AOV for grocery stores, or search to drive better conversion rate for apparel, as an example, because you may just give it the apparel brand 5 seconds. Maybe it's a low consideration item, or maybe luxury. You're driving more AOV because if you're buying that expensive things, you might drive more by giving them the right accessories to go along with the primary that you're kind of going with. You're just being able to extract more data from the facets of that product itself and provide the next best category, or even within the category, a better product that is more suited to that individual. And then you can even in session, based on things people are doing, clicking behavior, giving them that, use that context and immediately apply and give them something better, right? So it just gives you better context on what you can do next.
Great. Well, are there any other things that folks should be thinking about or that we should have talked about with regards to the application of technology to improving business outcomes in e-commerce?
Yeah, I think for me, the basic stuff is what I started with, where the shopper is giving you 5 seconds of attention. You as a brand, your challenge statement is in 5 seconds, I need to drive them to a next step, and the next step ideally is a conversion. And so as a brand, decide, hey, what channel is going to give me the most value for money, especially from an existing customer who can buy more and drive more LTV, because that's the world we are living in today for profitability. And now reimagine those channels. Every single channel is now shoppable, right? Email is shoppable, WhatsApp is shoppable, RCS is shoppable. Probably nobody's even using those things yet, but they have 1/3 the US population active on it, right? So what does that look like to you? And then don't go on just traditional web and app, right? That's true. Use this data to power better, superior, customer experiences, because that's what they want. They want the brand to know what the shopper is looking for by giving those hints and signals. And don't give me the essays to read. We are in a short form content world. Short form means literally short form, above the fold, right? So in above the fold, can you minimize, exactly hone in on exactly what you want me to see, and make it super easy to remove the friction to take the next step from there on out. And obviously, we have a lot of examples that we are doing, especially with email and making it shoppable, that we can show on the website. Definitely the things that we can talk about as well.
Great, great. Thanks so much for joining me and sharing your insights there. If people do want to see examples like this live, is it better for them to go to your website? Do you have a YouTube channel where you do demos of things? What's the best place for people to see this stuff in action?
Yeah, so it's actually our website, which is actually has a lot more of these demos. It's netcorecloud.com/inbox commerce. So we kind of came up and coined our own term where we called it why stop anywhere else? Your inbox is as good as a shoppable construct. So let's do commerce in that. And of course, you can always reach out for any questions. Yeah, in fact, I personally have this vision of every channel is going to be shoppable, and we are going to use AI to drive better personalized needs for every shopper in any channel. And I want to really go hone in on this 5-second philosophy and see how I can get someone to get impacted. So I'm also open directly as someone who would love to riff on ideas like this.
Great. Well, your LinkedIn is easy to find for folks, and I'll make sure that we include that when we publish this podcast.
Sounds good.
Thanks so much for joining me.
Perfect. Thank you for having me.
Kevin Lee's Power Marketing is available on all your favorite podcast networks. Kevin loves helping businesses excel at marketing. Having marketing challenges? Just like Santa in The Miracle on 34th Street, if Kevin can't help you, he'll know someone who can. Find him on LinkedIn, subscribe, or follow.